What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. Guys, it's Good Friday. It could indeed be a good Friday for a lot of Paraguayan teams and for a lot of Paraguayan players, as we'll definitely discuss, because it's certainly been a dramatically full week since we've last recorded. And we're talking about some results that definitely shocked us, definitely some results that I think posed well for some teams in competitions, talking about some young players as well, how they're kind of triumphing, be it in other countries and whatnot, and some really amazing goals. We'll discuss that here and there, but let's go straight to someone that I think is going to have quite a chill weekend, considering in Paraguay, it's Semana Santa, it's Holy Week today. We are recording on Good Friday, so certainly not a holiday that is obviously not forgotten. It's certainly a big holiday as we gear up towards Easter and the end of Lent. But Fede, how are you, man? I mean, we certainly saw a lot in the last week since we last recorded. Goals, we saw results, crazy results that we expected. I mean, what are the one things that I guess you could take away from it, really, before we get started?
Hi guys, nice to see you again. Yeah, it's a Holy Week here in Paraguay. People are very traditional here. We were talking about that right before going on the air, right? That here people usually leave the city. There's nobody here in Asunción pretty much these days. Everybody kind of going to see their family members in the countryside, having their chipa. It's a very traditional kind of days here in Paraguay. A lot of people respect that. There's even no football on Holy Friday. I don't know if you guys respect that over there in the U.S., but it's actually a very important tradition, I would even say, for Paraguayans trying to get some time off. We don't have that many holidays, to be honest, during the year. So it's a good opportunity for people to have some time off, spend it with their family, just like it happens also in Christmas. But what did not stop is football, just like you were saying, Roberto. I mean, last weekend we had a huge two big games from the local league, especially that Libertad Cerro Porteño game. That was a crucial match. It was probably one of the last chances for Cerro Porteño to catch up. And then we had the Libertadores starting. For the three Paraguayan teams, we had the Sudamericana that did not start good for Guarani, for Tacuary, very bad results for them. They even played really bad. I think that they kind of deserved what they got. But good results in Libertadores. Yeah, I'm still not feeling it with Olimpia. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Libertad. Cerro Porteño is hanging in there after losing a big game, but we definitely got to review those matches, and we definitely got to look at our Paraguayans. I mean, I'm really happy with what happened with Julio Enciso these past couple of days. Saw him crying there in the pitch, having an emotional moment with his teammates. I mean, you could see that he was waiting for it, right? Just like it happened with Miguel Almiron, I believe. It was that we waited so long to see him score for his first goal in Premier League, and when he got it, you could see that it was a bargain on him. And same thing for Julio Enciso and Matias Rojas. We got to talk about his goal also in Libertadores. Probably one of the best goals that we saw in this first week of matches. But yeah, we got a bunch of things to talk about here, like always in Guarani Vision. Plenty of football going on here in Paraguay these days, Roberto.
It doesn't stop, even on the holiest of weeks in the country. Football does not stop, and we'll go straight to Ralph on this one, because yeah, you're right. Here in the United States, we don't really have something like this where everything kind of stops. We're really deep into sports, really, playoffs starting. Obviously, when we speak about football, certainly MLS is obviously in that kind of sphere. But yeah, just going back to what he said, what Fede said about like just Paraguayans performing well and teams performing well. Obviously, we've also seen the U17 also play very well. Certainly a tournament that perhaps, depending on how you feel about it, it could or could not be the main decider for a future national team. But, at the time of recording, Paraguay are qualified to the hexagonal, the final stage, where the top four teams from those six teams in the hexagonal will qualify to the U17 World Cup. Paraguay currently are unbeaten, 2 wins and 1 draw. They tied Venezuela. They beat Peru 4-0, and then they beat Bolivia last night, which puts them in pole position to, of course, be in a good spot and prepare for the final stage. So, yeah, I mean, I guess same question to you as well. When we saw Julio Enciso, like you said, score his first goal in in the Premier League against Bournemouth, really emotional, as you could see, and you saw the videos from there, similar to what happens in Miggy when he scored his first goal for Newcastle. We saw Matias Rojas score a banger as well in Libertadores, for some commentators even saying it's probably the best one that they've ever called. We saw also some transfers happen as well. We saw Matias Segovia head off to Botafogo, and also, Diego Gonzalez, making a permanent move. If you remember, he made that move to Lazio on a loan. Now, after performances in Primavera over there, the youth competition, youth team, the Lazio have decided to keep with him. Mauricio Sarri is going to finally have him part of the side. So, this has certainly been, I guess, a good week for Paraguayan players and teams, depending on which side of the coin that you're on.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, firstly, there's been so much football going on, right? So all these games, even last night, we had to decide between watching Guarani or Libertad because they were on at the same time in international competition, and lots going on. The Mati Rojas goal is being compared a lot to another Paraguayan who scored with his left foot from there, which is Chilaver. So people were reminding that in Argentina, they're reminding, oh yeah, we've had Paraguayans do this before. The difference being, of course, Chilaver was a goalkeeper, but for Rojas, he's in a really good moment. I thought when he played in the national team, he was actually one of the better points in what was a disappointing performance overall from the Albiroja. So I mean, it's really good to have these players doing well abroad. You mentioned Enciso. I mean, Enciso's in a really, I think, interesting position that he's been told he might get some more minutes, and you can assume that maybe someone like Mitoma is going to move on because Mitoma is playing so well. So there could be a space opening up for him next year if he can start to put in that performances. But at the same time, he's got other 18-year-olds and teenagers around him that were also scoring. So there's lots of pressure, there's lots of competition. But he got that goal, and I think that's really important for him. And then, yeah, just on the under-17s, I'm not watching it that closely. One thing to note is the pitches are terrible. They're in really bad condition there in Guayaquil. So I don't know if we're going to get the best football when the pitches aren't really up to standard. But what we've seen, or what I've seen in the highlights, is you have Jorge Mora is playing really well. He's a midfielder. He's at Sol de America. And then the captain yesterday was Villalba, and Villalba has been one of the top scorers, and he scores a really good goal to open the scoring. You have maybe the star of the pack is probably Cesar Minio, because he's actually played in Paraguayan senior football for Guarani. He debuted at 15. He scored 2 goals, I think, against Peru, in the game against Peru. He was actually on the bench, though, because it seems like they're not using him too much. He's still only 16. So technically, he's one of the youngest in this age group. But of course, he's been promoted up because he has that kind of experience. But let's see how they do in the second round, because remember, Paraguay under 20s, they had a really good start in the first group, and then they kind of ran out of steam. And it's the same manager, it's Aldo Bobadilla again. So let's see if he's learned anything from the under 20s before they set off in what's like the final round. They try and look to go to the World Cup, which I think, by the way, no one knows where the World Cup will be, because it was meant to be in Peru. It's been taken away for like a whole variety of reasons, which could be another podcast, I think. But at the moment, I'm not sure if they've decided where the under 17s World Cup will be. So once if they can get through, they will then try and find out where they get to go next. But yeah, it's good and plenty to talk about, like you say.
Certainly. And of course, like, it kind of is a bit bitter as well that the U20 World Cup that also had to be moved to Argentina, and the fact that Argentina was a side that didn't even qualify for the World Cup, and now they get a chance to play, kind of shows kind of a bit of bitterness and even a bit more pressure to be like, okay, now we can't not lose this opportunity to qualify for the U17, unless they don't and they move it to Paraguay. So who knows? I mean, there's always a possibility there, but that'll happen when it will happen. But let's discuss what we saw in the local league, and we'll go into probably the biggest shock that we saw on the weekend. We did see a good result as well, or at least good result for Guarani, where they played Olimpia in the match that really was going to be a decider about how the league was going to go. It was a game at the Manuel Ferreira at Para Uno, and it was Raúl Cáceres scoring the winner in the 84th minute to give Guarani all 3 points, putting them in second place provisionally. But the big game that everyone has been talking about in the last week that we saw in the local league was the Libertad 5, Cerro Porteño 0 result over there in Tujuqua. I mean, it went terribly wrong for Cerro Porteño, only as early in the second minute where a mistake from Angel Lucena saw Oscar Cardoso score in just the second minute, followed by 11 minutes later, a goal again from Tacuara in the 13th minute. And then, of course, it was just getting to bad to worse. Barbosa getting another goal in the 20th minute. Cardoso completing his hat trick in the 45th minute, but it wasn't even done there. We still had extra time or stoppage time, I guess, in that first half. And of course, we got another penalty, and Libertad scored again. Tacuara Cardoso getting 4 goals, the first time he's ever scored a poker in his career. And Cerro Porteño completely and absolutely smashed from Libertad, from Daniel Ganero. Facundo Saba losing his unbeaten streak after this game. I mean, I'll go to Fede on this one. What went wrong? What the hell happened over there? Because certainly this was not the Cerro Porteño side that we had been expected to see. We've seen them, lose leads. We've seen them, concede early, but they would always come back. But we saw this as early as in the first half, not even when the first half ended, we saw this being over very, very quickly. I mean, what the hell went wrong for Libertad? I mean, sorry, for Cerro Porteño. And I guess, how strong is this Libertad side to really be considered serious as now potential title winners of the Apertura?
Yeah, I totally felt that the match was over after that third goal. Even you could see that Cerro was having several problems handling the ball, that they couldn't attack. I don't even think they got a shot at goal. I believe in that whole first half, while Libertad was just doing everything they had in their power and taking all the chances that Cerro was giving them. I mean, you talked about the scoring just 2 minutes into the game, and it was Pica Lucena. It was Angel Lucena who had trouble handling the ball. He was pressured by Diego Gomez and Tacuara Cardoso. He had his game. He had his big game so far for Libertad, and there's a story there behind it also. Tacuara, when he came back to Paraguay, he wanted to play for Cerro Porteño. He was waiting for an offer from Cerro Porteño, and he never got that offer. And then Libertad called him, and he's been there ever since he came back. But he never got that starting role either. He's always been trying to fight there with Roque Cardoso, who had that starting role last year. The year started with him on the team, but then Alfio Oviedo took over as the center forward in Libertad. So you were kind of waiting for a big match like this from Tacuara Cardoso, but 4 goals, I mean, that's just amazing what he did. And you could see that he's a player that's built for these kind of games also. I mean, this is a player that did everything in Europe. He scored so many goals, but he's still doing it with 39 years old now. It's incredible to see him at this stage of his career, playing at this level, making a difference for his team, being so important. The game was over, and he was standing right there in midfield with his whole family, with his children, and getting a standing ovation from the whole stadium. I mean, that was just beautiful to see. I mean, someone that was so criticized back in 2010 because of that penalty against Spain, to see him get that prize from his own fans, from Libertad fans, from the Paraguayan people here at his country. I think that was a very special moment for him also. Besides what happened in the game, I mean, in the game, only one team played. I mean, it was just Libertad. I mean, Cerro never showed up to this game, and Cerro had problems even in that defense with Juan Patiño, their captain, coming out. He got injured. When they wanted to replace him, it was kind of weird what Facundo Saba, the Cerro Porteño coach, did, because he had the Brazilian center back right there, Brock, sitting in the bench, but he didn't bring him in. He kind of improvised in that defense, and it was not a game to improvise, because in front of Cerro Porteño was the team that was number 1 coming to this game, and they barely lost. They had only lost to Olimpia, and that was an away game. They've always felt very confident playing at home with their fans, and you could see that Libertad was really into the match. And then you had a couple of young players that are also taking over in Libertad. We talked about Libertad's injury problems these last couple of games, especially what happened against Olimpia, where they lost a couple of players like like Hugo Martinez, and they also lost Lorenzo Melgarejo. But how easily have they replaced them, right? I mean, Enzo Gonzalez coming in, a kid that's just 18 years old, and he's playing there with Tacuara. He's playing there with Tito Villalba. Tito Villalba, in my eyes, in the way I see it, he's the big difference in this team. He's probably one of the top 3 players, I believe, in the league right now in this Apertura, starting the year off. I want to see him in the national team. I don't know why he wasn't called up last time around, to be honest, because he's been so quick. He's been scoring. I think he has 4 goals and 5 assists so far in the Apertura. Great numbers for him. I mean, contributing on both sides of the game. And then you have Lucas Sanabria, also 23 years old. He's from the Libertad Academy. He's been waiting for his chance. He went last year to play at another team. Now he's back, and now he's taking over in that midfield. He didn't have the starting role, so everything that Libertad has to replace, they get a replacement for it, and they have a solution. I've been saying this over and over again, but it's just what's happening with the squad. They even had Diego Vieira out in defense, and Luis Cardoso played a fantastic game also. So, it props to Libertad. I mean, they earned it. They deserve to be there in that first spot. And in the way I see it, they're candidates. They're number 1, Ralph. I mean, I don't know who's going to take it away from them. I don't see another team playing like Libertad does. I don't see another team having all the players that Libertad has available.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think you summed it up really well with how they've had so many injury problems or or had to change personnel, and they always find the solution. And that's actually what a great asset of Garnero's. Like, sometimes I'm a bit critical of Garnero in the big knockout games, and maybe he doesn't get tactics right, but in the league, he's always had that system and always managed to find the right player to fill the gap at the right time. Because it was some big misses, like you said. Diego Vieira has been really important. They're missing Diego Gomez as well. He was injured. He came back midweek, but then they fill in with the youngsters. And Campuzano has come in and been doing a really good job as well in midfield because of they losing Hugo Martinez. It's just they keep finding those players. And I think one thing he's always done really well, Garnero, in the league, is they manage to keep that intensity in these big games when they've even got the bigger game coming up, because they had to go to Mineiro for the Copa Libertadores, which we'll talk about soon. But even with that in the back of their mind, he manages to get them to have that intensity, which we see at the very beginning, which kind of is helped by Lucena, who, by the way, it looks like Lucena was playing injured, right? We can see that the fact that he missed the midweek game, with hindsight, he maybe was playing injured. Patiño was playing injured and had to even come off. So maybe Cerro went kind of, even from the beginning, they weren't able to match the intensity. But you just think that Libertad did that so well. And I think one of the things that Cerro, why did they just fall apart? Because remember, this is a team that's unbeaten as well, and actually playing very well under Sava. I mean, they had a couple of games they had to come back, but they always looked like a team that was able to score and create chances and things, and they did nothing here. I mean, one of the things is, if you look, when you think about game management into slots of time, like maybe your 15 minutes or your 10 minutes, breaking it down, every time they just thought they might be able to stop Libertad scored. Because if you look at the timing of the goals, the first goal, of course, is a killer blow, like 1-0 after 2 minutes. But then they must have said, all right, let's try and just set ourselves and be ready, like give ourselves 10 minutes to recover. And just in the 12th minute, 10 minutes later, Libertad hit them again. And it's like they never really managed to get to their rhythm. And it's interesting, just talking about Garnero again. Garnero used to manage Facundo Sava, right? Back in, I think it was in Arsenal of Sarandí or somewhere. So it's kind of funny to see that you sometimes get the apprentice overtaking the master, because we're seeing Arteta and Pep in the Premier League, for example. But at the moment, we're not seeing that here, because Sava's really been outthought. And I don't think Cerro have suddenly become a bad team. Let's just mention that too. I mean, this was just a really good Libertad performance, and they were playing on one level, and I think Cerro were not even close to that level, and you saw the difference. And yeah, for Oscar Cardoso, I mean, I was searching for when was his last poker, when was the last time he scored 4 goals, and it was the first time, and I was surprised. I thought, wow, so this is a guy that next month he's turning 40, and he's actually scored the most goals he ever has in a game. He has lots of hat tricks, of course, with various clubs across his career. But wow, this is actually the best individual goal haul he ever had, and he's about to turn 40. So that's also, I think, a great thing for his professionalism. He's involved in a lot of stuff at the moment. He's just opened his new his new store and all this kind of stuff, because he's like launched a new brand of, I think, of meat, right? Because he owns a lot of cattle ranches in the Chaco and stuff. So you could say, oh, maybe he's been a bit distracted or something, but no way. He's an ultimate professional, and he's done really well and fully deserves that. And by doing that, he reached 100 goals with Libertad, which is brilliant.
Is certainly a remarkable achievement for Tacuara to do this, especially at, like you said, as he's approaching 40 years old. I mean, guys, in terms of now what we saw over the weekend and kind of the other results as well, we're heading into the halfway part of the season. Is it safe to say that this league is over? I mean, again, it isn't over till it's over. And I think we've seen that where we've had bigger surprises happen, but looking at how the league table stands right now, like you said, Libertad's still top of the league right now. Second place is Guarani, but a 7-point gap. 6-point gap. But considering that they've already played the likes of Guarani, Libertad, Cerro and Olimpia, I mean, is it safe to say? Is anyone going to have the courage to say that this league is over, Fede? I mean, I'll go to you on this one. Can we say that this league is over, or no, not yet?
I'm sticking with my candidates, guys. I mean, I'm hoping for you guys to get on this wagon now, because I told you guys at the beginning of the year it was going to be Libertad, it was going to be Olimpia up there. Olimpia obviously had a lot of injured problems, and they lost their star. They lost Early Gonzalez, so they're not going to fight it. They're totally relegated into the possibility, I believe, to fight this apertura. I don't know if Guarani can make it there. I don't think they have enough players, to be honest. Now playing also Sudamericana, I think they're going to have troubles. They barely beat Olimpia the other day, and they were playing on the counter attack. So they're not also, they're not playing they're not playing their hearts out. They're not playing as well as they can play. I believe they haven't achieved that yet. I leave it at that. With Carnero, they've been working 3 years now, 4 years, maybe even. I don't know how long he's been there already, but you see that this squad is more than ready and capable of doing this. And the way they've been solving all their problems, I mean, they're the number one candidate, and I don't see any of these teams that are up there, neither Guarani, Cerro Porteño, or Olimpia, or even a surprise coming up like Sportivo Luqueño, Sportivo Ameliano. I don't see really any of these teams being able to maintain the rhythm that Libertad has shown so far. I mean, 8 wins, 1 tie, just 1 loss, 18 goals they scored so far, and just 5 goals I believe they received. So I mean, their numbers are just spectacular so far, and I'm hoping that they're going to keep this up. I mean, if Tito Villalba keeps this level, you got Alfio Oviedo also scoring. Yeah, he got a red card against Olimpia, but he had a great Libertadores game against Atlético Mineiro. So you have all these players totally ready to compete, totally ready to fight for their spot. And I think that's what I'm liking about this squad right now, that they have different options, but they have guys internally fighting for their spot right now. So there is competition in that squad. So yeah, the way I see it, Roberto, just to give you an answer, just like I did at the beginning of the year, Libertad is going to be the champion of this apertura. I have right now no doubt about it.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I think I'm the same. I don't feel like saying it in such a confident way, but I think you're right, because when you look at the underlying numbers, like Fede just said, they have they have the joint best attack with Cerro, but they have by far the best defense. And that was their problem last year in the Clausura. In the Clausura, they couldn't quite figure out the defense, and that's what really started to let them down. And then sometimes teams get distracted with the Copa Libertadores, but we know from experience that hasn't happened with Libertad, because this time last year they won the Apertura with a records point total. So I mean, they can play both competitions. They have enough players. So looking at it, I mean, I can't see, the only team that's close to them or vaguely close is Guarani. And we're going to talk about that soon. Guarani, I don't think are even playing particularly well. They just seem to be digging out the results, and I don't think they can make up 6 points on on Libertad. So it looks like another title, and that would be really interestingly a joint record title for Garnero. He would equal Cubilla from Olimpia with 8 Primera titles. So no manager has won more than 8, and he would be moving into that. So that's an incredible achievement for him.
Very much so. Yeah, I think I'm gonna say, like, I think it's gonna take a really, really good side and a big collapse from Libertad to not win this title. So I think I'm gonna say it right here with halfway towards the season about to close. Yep. I'll say it. Libertad will win the 2023 Apertura. Yeah, 8 titles for Ganero, 8 Apertura titles, I should say. Yeah, that is certainly an impressive record, only managed by Luis Cubilla, one of the all-time great managers in Paraguay football history. So yeah, certainly, definitely deserves his flowers, his recognition. But like I said, got a whole league to have. Still got half of a league to be decided. Anything can happen, but I think just looking at it from a logical standpoint, yeah, I think Libertad are well and truly on their way to become Apertura champions. Let's switch gears to what we saw in the Copa Libertadores, because certainly we did see some important matches happen involving our Paraguayan sides. We'll talk about the results that we saw at the time of recording. Thankfully, we got all 3 Paraguayan results in the way that we wanted. The first team that we're going to talk about is the Cerro Porteño side that lost to Libertad on the weekend. A lot of pressure was on them to get a good result, and they end up getting the result that they needed, a crucial win, especially considering that Bolivar had scored 3 against Palmeiras over there in La Paz. But Cerro Porteño ended up becoming winners on the day against Barcelona de Guayaquil in a packed La Hoya. Goals from Aquino on a proper penalty before Ortiz of Barcelona equalized. But then it was Diego Churin, the new guy that came in this season, or at least the returning guy, coming in to score the winner to give all 3 points to Cerro Porteño. Fast forward to what we saw last night. We saw Libertad getting a big result over there in Belo Horizonte at the Mineirao against Atletico Mineiro. A goal from Diego Gomez, a young player that we've always talked about here, becoming very exciting. And, at only 20 years old, he certainly is someone that is going to be amongst the future players on the Paraguay national team. So Libertad get a good result there. Of course, with the 0-0 draw with Alianza Lima and Atlético Paranaense, that means Libertad are group winners. Group leaders for the time being. And for Olimpia, they have traveled all the way to Melgar. An early result was on the cusp here. Guillermo Paiva scoring in the 14th minute, but it was an equalizer from a someone that I didn't know was such a legend over there in Melgar. I think it was like their all-time goal scorer or something like that, in Bernardo Cuesta. So, Ralph, I'll go to you on this one, because certainly, I guess you could say from in hindsight that all 3 Paraguayan sides in the Libertadores go with positive results, but the only team that I think could feel a bit disappointed is Olimpia, especially, being so close from being able to snatch an away win over there in Peru. But I think other than that, I think we could say it's been kind of a I guess you could say straightforward, but certainly a week where Paraguayan teams could feel very happy in getting it on the right foot for their Libertadores groups.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we go in order of the game, so with Cerro, they did what they kind of had to do, right? They have to win the home games and against the 2 rival teams, which will be Bolivar and Barcelona. And so they did that. I thought it was interesting. I mean, one, they had to obviously respond from the Libertad game, which we just talked about. So there was some of that pressure. But then I think also what they had was that challenge when Ortiz equalizes. Barcelona didn't play very well, I thought, but Ortiz was maybe one of the better players. But they did have that kind of period just before they scored, when they were coming back into the game, and they score. And then so Cerro must have thought, right, we need to respond. And what they do really well is they respond so quickly, because the winning goal comes maybe like 90 seconds after, or 2 minutes after the equalizer. And it's Claudio Aquino, who I thought had a great game. Aquino finds that pass to Churin, which is a very difficult pass, and really like one you're not even expecting. And we know about Churin's quality. When he's in and around the box, he's the all-time top scorer in La Nueva Olla. So since Cerro Porteño have moved to or refurbished that stadium, he's the top scorer there. He's only 1 goal short of Roberto Nani, who played a long time in in Cerro and was once Libertadores top goal scorer back in 2011. So I mean, this is the kind of quality we're seeing from Turin, and that's going to be really important for them. And he has a habit of scoring important goals in the Libertadores from what I remember. So that was a good result for them. I mean, then you move to Libertad, and it's actually a fantastic result because I don't know. I mean, they have such a hard group. I was thinking, was this going to be their hardest fixture in the group, or is it when they go to Atletico Paranaense? But it's definitely the games in Brazil are by far the hardest. And I was looking at the stats. I mean, Paraguayan teams this was only the 12th time Paraguayan teams won away in Brazil in the Libertadores. It doesn't happen that often. We got a bit used to it because Cerro did it against Fortaleza this year. But it really is a huge result anytime you can pick up all 3 points from Brazil. And so that was so important for them because they know that group's going to be really tough. They have 2 Brazilian teams. So I think it's such a good win for them. And I thought what they did really well was they scored the goal early, which, although it's a really well taken strike by Diego Gomez, it's actually, again, is Tito Villalba, because he's the one breaking the lines and dribbling through to get the ball into that position. But yeah, they score early, but then they managed to hold on. And again, we were talking about this just a bit earlier about that's where Garnero has sometimes found it difficult to see out games or to play a bit differently, because he likes to just go and try and blow teams away like he did with Cerro. That's always been his style, but you can't do that in Brazil. It's a different kind of matchup. So I think that was definitely the pick of the results. And then the most disappointing is probably Olimpia, but it's not a terrible result either. I mean, when you on the surface maybe think, oh, a draw in Peru, they should really be winning. But you look again, they have so many injury problems, right? They're missing just so many players from injury. It just keeps kind of racking up. And they really missed Derlis Gonzalez. I mean, that's something that's very clear. He was such a key player. So getting the draw to Melgar, who is a team that actually did very well last year, I don't think is it's not a terrible result. It doesn't look as good on paper, and it is maybe disappointing, especially because they were leading, right? But I don't think it's a terrible result to take back, because they have, unlike Libertad, who have a very difficult group, they have a very easy group. And so I think they should be able to win their 3 home games. And so with 10 points, you're usually through. Just one thing to note, though, for Olimpia, it would have been really important to win, because CONMEBOL are doing something different with the prize money this year. So they're actually giving money for wins in the group stage, which they've never done before. You get $300,000 per win, which for somebody like Olimpia, who has lots of issues at the moment still with debts and finances, that would have been a really big. So you think that Cuesta goal, it cost them $300,000. And it's even a big thing for the Sudamericanos. We'll talk, because they're going to get $100,000 per game as well. And this is, I think, CONMEBOL's way of making sure that when we get to the end of the group stages and there might not be anything to play for, teams still go for it for the money.
Yeah, I love that extra motivation CONMEBOL has thrown at these teams, especially playing at home. Olimpia, let's start there. I'm gonna go that way first, just because that's what Ralph was talking about. 17 shots from Melgar during the whole match. I mean, what was Olimpia doing in defense during that first half, right? They had so many problems, especially when Melgar took the ball to the sides. I mean, Tito Torres, Salazar, they were having troubles defending. These are attacking left back and right back, and they were having problems really when they had to defend against a team that, yeah, they had a good season last year. They had a good run in Sudamericana, I believe it was, this Peruvian team. But I thought Olimpia, if they were at their best moment, if they had Derlis Gonzalez, if they were playing like they did at the end of last year, which is what got them to this Libertadores, they would have probably beat this team. But as of right now, it's a great result. It's a great point. It's a great way to start this Libertadores, especially after what we've seen lately from Olimpia. I mean, Olimpia fans are kind of getting used to seeing a side that always has problems in defense. Creatively, they're also having problems. They can't have the ball. They never have more possession than the team they're facing against. Here, it was 62% against 38% from Olimpia. I mean, this was a very, bad game from Olimpia in that sense. I mean, when you see Olimpia and Libertadores, you're hoping to see a team with tradition. You're hoping to see a strong team in Libertadores. Trying to play forward, trying to attack, but you're not seeing that today from Olimpia. And Olimpia was just playing with one forward. I mean, Guillermo Paiva, that's all they have available right now because the coach doesn't want to go with the young players. Well, at least some of them. Alan Wilk is yet to play pretty much with this new coach. And he's only used Guillermo Paiva. Bruera was back. He got a couple of minutes at the end of the game. I thought he could have come in a little bit early, maybe put in some maybe we could have gotten some chances on those air balls that he's so good at. Especially because you could see that Melgar was having problems. Melgar was going all out trying to win the game at home, and they were leaving spaces back there. And I think Olimpia could have taken some advantage of that. But as of right now, it's just a good trip back to Asunción. It's a good trip back to Paraguay because you got a point. You didn't lose. That's what you need right now. I think, just build some momentum and have the coach make the right calls as of right now, because when you see this team, you're seeing that certain players are just not showing up. I mean, they're getting their opportunities, but they're just not bringing the level. I'm talking about Luis Zárate in defense. Antolín Alcaraz came in this game. He really took over. He's 40 years old, but every time he's in that defense, you can see that he's the leader. He kind of fixes those problems. I think he could be that solution that Olimpia is having in that defense as of right now, just to try to gather up. You're not seeing the same from Gomez in midfield like you did last year. You're not seeing the same from Hugo Fernandez, who had a very important role, I believe, in this team in these last two games, being really close to the forward, being really close to Paiva. He has just not brought anything to this team. So I'm hoping that the coach, looks at the tape, looks back at this game, and kind of figures it out with the players that he's going to keep on using. And ever since Diego Aguirre has taken this game, this team, he's yet to have a whole week to practice, a whole week to really try to do something with this team. And I think he wants to change it up a bit, but as of right now, Olimpia does not have enough players available. They need to get some of those players to kind of come back and give that boost that this team needs. The squad did not have enough players at the beginning of the season, and they lost a couple, and you can see that they're having many problems. Huge win for Libertad. The way I see it, Libertad was very intelligent, very smart the way they played in Brazil, because they got the early goal and they put the pressure on Atlético Mineiro. That first half was just spectacular from Libertad. I mean, the counter attack was working. They were defending very well. Barbosa was behaving. He wasn't hitting anybody. So I'm happy with what I'm seeing from Libertad in that sense. I mean, when you have to play against the Brazilian side, especially when you play away, you have to know how to defend. And here in the local league, you usually have a Libertad that's attacking. They barely have the whole bus back there waiting and defending. So it was good to see them being able to do that, being able to counterattack, to see Tito Villalba taking over every time he had the ball, passing the midfield and so quick with the ball. So I'm liking it from Libertad. I mean, they sent a direct message, I believe, in this group. We're gonna go for that first spot. We're not gonna go for anything less than that first spot, and that was a clear message to the Brazilian teams. I love what Ralph said. I mean, this is the second time already this year that a Paraguayan team has beaten a Brazilian team. So hey, let's get used to it. This is what we need right now in Libertadores. This is what we're gonna have to do to get the job done. And as for Cerro Porteño, they had problems. They had to replace players in defense. They had to replace players in midfield, but they were able to handle it. They were able to make it done. They were able to make it done. And I believe that Cerro Porteño, they have a starting team, but they have a whole bunch of players that are building, that are coming to their best level. Also, they're finally achieving it. I'm talking about Brian Samudio. He's coming in. He's been scoring lately. So you have a player there that he's knocking the door, because Diego Churin right now, he's the only one pretty much that's scoring as a forward. I was hoping to see a lot more from Robert Morales, but Morales is having problems getting back to his best shape. I mean, we saw him on the national team, but he hasn't been able to score lately. I mean, Diego Churin has been the hot striker on this team. So as long as you got Churin working, Carrizo and Claudio Aquino, or at least just one of those two making a difference. It was Claudio Aquino the other day. I think he was the best player on the pitch. And as long as you got John Fernandez in that goalkeeping spot, I mean, when the game was tied, Barcelona had an opportunity. They had a one-on-one opportunity against John Fernandez, and he just opened up his body. He stopped that ball right in front, and then Robert Pires da Mota also saved the ball right on the line. That was, I believe, a key play for Barcelona to not get it on their side. If not, it was going to be really difficult, the game for Cerro Porteño. And then you had that beautiful pass from Claudio Aquino to Diego Churin. And you can see that Churin is just feeling it. I mean, he's feeling so confident. He's feeling so loose. He hit that ball just straight up with that left foot and did it so quickly. And I'm yet to see a strong side against Cerro Porteño in Libertadores. So I'm waiting for that Palmeiras match. I don't know about you guys, but I want to see Cerro Porteño, how they do in this next away game against Palmeiras. But that will be in a couple of weeks. I believe we have a couple of weeks to wait for that second week. But as of right now, I'm feeling really, really good with our Paraguayan teams, the way they started off in this Libertadores, Roberto. I think Cerro and Libertad can really aim for that first spot.
I think they can as well. I mean, like you said, yeah, the crucial game for Cerro is the game against Palmeiras. They'll obviously be playing away over there, but that would be a fantastic test. And I think if they're able to get some sort of result there, I think they're in a good position to really be considered group winners and really fight for it. We'll see what happens to like Libertad and Olimpia. I just wanted to cross in real quick to what we saw in the Sudamericana, because certainly it was a more disappointing fare out for our Paraguayan sides. We saw Guarani lose 4-1 on the day to Huracan. The goal from Santander was the only kind of saving grace from El Arborigen. And we saw Tacuaru play at the Defensores del Chaco, taking the lead early against Red Bull Bragantino, only for Red Bull Bragantino to score 4 afterwards. So, I mean, Fede, I mean, I don't know what really is disappointing on this one is to see how both sides really were in the fight. Guarani was getting an equalizer from Santander when he scored, and Tacuaru was taking the lead, but they just absolutely collapsed, having both their sides score 4 against them.
Yeah, it's a shame to see these results, right? I mean, both teams losing their games and the way they lost. I mean, this was not what I was expecting, especially from Guarani, but they don't have enough players, I believe, to replace when they have problems in defense, when they miss Marcos Cáceres. If he gets injured, they don't have a player like him to come in that defense. I believe it was Moya, the Colombian, that was sent off also in this game. And after that, it was just downhill for them. They couldn't fix that situation, and Huracan just really took over after that Federico Santander goal in the minute 18. I think that was all that we saw from Guarani in that match. After that, it was all Huracan, and Guarani did not feel good playing in Buenos Aires at all. They're gonna have to bounce back from this. Sudamericana gives you that opportunity. There are more games coming ahead, but Guarani came from playing a very tough match, a game that I think took everything out of them against Olimpia. They were defending most of the game. They were playing on the counterattack. So I think they were really tired for this game against Huracan. And just like I was saying, they don't have enough players to rotate. They even lost Matias Segovia, that was a guy having a starting role also in this team. He went to Brazil, like you said, to Botafogo. And, you know, they only have young players to replace him as of right now. So I think this is going to be the situations in some games for what I need. In some games, they're going to have big matches and they're going to be able to win. But in some games, they're not going to just have enough, and we're going to see these kind of results. As for Tacuarí, it was just what I was expecting, unfortunately. I mean, Tacuarí has not looked good at all this season. They changed their manager several times, and they are still yet to gather themselves. I don't know what they're doing in Sudamericana. I don't think they even deserve to be there, to be honest, but they made it through against General Caballero, and they're here. So now they got to respond to this situation, and they got 4 goals. I believe one was even came from directly from a corner. That was one of the best goals I've seen also in Sudamericana this week from the Bragantino side. For that second goal, I believe it was on this match. And for Tacuarí, I don't know what they're going to do, Ralph. I don't know how they're going to be able to manage themselves in this situation in the Sudamericana. I mean, this stage just looks way too big for this team.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that they scored a goal, if I'm being very brutally honest with them. I mean, and taking the lead as well, you thought, could this really happen? Because we did see it last year. I think maybe it was Guarani, or maybe was it General Caballero? I can't remember who was doing it. That they would score a goal and then just sit back and have like 30 shots against them and manage to hold out or something. But it wasn't to be. And I wasn't expecting that. And like you said, it's really difficult for Taquari, especially because this week now they play Cerro in the league, and the league's much more important. Well, it's hard to balance, right? The league is more important in the sense that they can't afford to be relegated. That's what they have to avoid. But then the Sudamericana, like we're saying, it pays that $100,000 per win. So if you could just get a win, that's going to be a huge boost to you as well for a smaller side like Taquari. But yeah, I don't see much hope for them or much future for them in this competition. It's come at probably the worst time for them. And it's that strange thing of they qualified because maybe they had like a really good run in like the middle of last year, kind of the beginning of the clausura. And so much has happened since then. It's almost like a different team. For Guarani, it was very disappointing. I watched a bit of that game. When the first half, when Santander scores, and it's a great cross from Walter Clar, who's also doing really well in that defense. So I think, yeah, that defense is really good when Cáceres plays, because you have the two Cáceres, Raúl and Marcos, you have Moya and you have Clar. That's been really good when they're all together. But as soon as you take one piece from that jigsaw, it falls apart, which is actually how it happened before Clar came in. I remember he came in like 3 games into the season, and before that they were conceding lots of goals. So it's like, yeah, it's a really tight balancing act, and they have to have everybody playing at the right time and the same time. And also, I was just looking at funny stuff about Guarani. They've never actually managed to win more than 1 game per year in the Sudamericana. So they played the Sudamericana. I think this is the 5th time. They already got their win against Ameliano. So maybe they won't manage to break that kind of curse, because they've never managed to win more than 1 game in a single year of Sudamericana. And that's with Santander as well, because Santander has now scored twice in this year's competition. He was last scoring back in 2013. So it's funny to see he's back 10 years later, but for now, things haven't changed. But we'll see. They got plenty of chances again, because they get 5 more games, and they've still got the home games. The home games are also very important, right?
Certainly a lot more football to play for a lot of these teams in the Libertadores and into Sudamericana as well, as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.